Dear diarrhea, diary full of shit. Just play along with myself and I. No one else. I'm so legit. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. Usually this is the time that I'd be getting out of my pickup and starting the generator at my last job. But seeing as even though it's officially spring, the days are still shorter. I'm wondering if they're starting a little bit later, like an hour later, because they don't have like those lights, So in order to do stuff, it's better to do it when the sun's starting to come up. That way you're not using headlights and shit. Because headlights have glare and stuff, it's just... And we didn't have lights, we need to be able to see for what we're doing for safety reasons, but... Or did, but... Anyway... I've kind of shot myself in the foot, with this staying unemployed for 3 months, because I'm going to have to be honest about my DUI, obviously, so... I'm going to have to tell a little fib when they say, being unemployed for a month or even 2 is kind of like, okay, I was looking for a job, but the type of jobs that I would apply for, if I don't get this driving job with my, the company that I worked for before, getting jobs is like you kind of be a general labor type shit, or, maybe entry level. Anyway, I'll skip the details, as far as like heavy equipment and all that shit, and the apprentice, and at the railroad and shit and whatnot like that. But these are jobs that aren't like super hard to get. Like if I was a white collar office worker, then that might make more sense. But the type of work, it's like if I want a job, I can get a job. So because it's been 3 months, and I haven't been looking, I've been taking down information, on companies and whatnot, but, whoever's doing the hiring, they're going to probably suspect, oh, okay, DUI, so you have a drinking problem, they're probably going to assume that I've been drinking for the last 3 months, so. Because I remember when I was hired on for the first company where, for that loader position, he was like, you made a bad decision, but that doesn't mean you can't, get a job and make money. But he did say, you're not an alcoholic, are you? Because he had a guy who was an alcoholic, and I don't know if he had to fire him or if he had to quit and check into rehab or what, but... people get DUIs who aren't alcoholics, but the combination of me getting a DUI, and not, even looking, because I'm not going to lie and be like, I've been looking. I'm going to be like, well, I just sort of decided to kind of take some time, for myself. But anyway, get my minds right, whatever, get in shape, I don't know, whatever. Oh, shit. Which hasn't been the case, but... they're going to suspect that. So, I've shot myself in the foot with that. So they're going to think, yeah, okay, so there's going to be, days where you're either going to show up late or not at all, because... you're a fucking alcoholic. That's why you got a DUI, and that's why you haven't been working for the last 3 months. And that's why you haven't been seeking employment for the last few months. So... that's probably what they'll think. And as far as like on the application, be it paper or online or whatever, as well as I always turn in kind of a resume as a little extra boost. That way I can describe what my job duties were and whatnot. And it's just a nice little, touch to kind of give yourself an extra, chance. Um, you know, I'll just say, seeking other employment, which is the truth. I believe that's why uh, my boss fired me, because I wasn't screwing up. I was doing the job just fine. But because we had no breaks and no lunch, and I was working 12-hour days, and the boss would frequently, if there wasn't other stuff going on, he would come on over to the cone crusher and work there. So I would have to ask, hey, can I, go make some phone calls? And I was trying to make appointments with the DMV and whatnot, and I'm sure he just put two and two together and figured I was going to be quitting soon. So anyway, yeah, I didn't get a message back when I responded from the Ruby de Rossi site, if that's even a real name. I would imagine that it's not, because I had said that you could look her up, because it said 6.9 miles away. You think 6.9 was coincidence, or 69? And I don't really know what that is. It was probably just an empty, sort of like a shocker moment. Like, oh my God, she lives nearby. Because as I said, I'm not going to repeat myself, but she's probably got it figured out, either from herself or maybe the site offers coaching, and how to run a channel, because that's a platform. It's not OnlyFans. I forget what it was called, Fan Place or something like that. I'm not even sure if OnlyFans is still up and running. And like I said, it's $9.99 for 30 days, and then it's $19.99 reoccurring until you cancel. So, so I subscribed and then immediately canceled. So I've got 30 days worth, of what have you. Now, I don't know how long she's had this site. I just recently sort of looked at it, because, I only play a simp on TV. In real life, I'm a OG, thug master. Not really a thug, but, whatever. Alpha, Sigma, Salamander, Commander, Chicken Shit, Dog Nugget, French Fry. And so when I see a pretty girl, like, even if I mention her kind of, how I do, like, oh my God, she's so pretty, that's my future wife. It actually says that in her thing. Hello, I'm your future wife. I mean, hello, nice to meet you, blah, blah. And she's, playing it like that, because she fucking knows, I mean, she's got this, just adorable, like, just in her quick little YouTube bio, I'm the good girl who's naughty, or whatever. And that's all her YouTube channel is just her doing little doot, doot, doot. And her like longer videos, they're just, compilations or compilations, however you say, of her doing the doot, 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 the little shimmy, shimmy, shake, shake. And other than that, it's just shorts. So she's wanting you to go over, and it says it's free. It's not free. It's free to check. You know what I mean? It's like that's like saying, it's free to pay. I mean, I'm not going to charge you to, buy. It's free to buy the candy bar. You can physically pick it up and take it up to the checkout counter and pay for it. That's free. It's free to enter the store. Unless it's like a Costco or a Sam's Club. Then you got to have a membership. But you know what I'm saying, right? So it's like, and 6.9 miles away, and how she's playing it, and blah blah blah, and how she's got the AI set up, and like, well, now I'm repeating myself. She wants engagement. That's what she's looking for. So now, eventually, does maybe she kind of actually, because I doubt she has to work. She probably doesn't have a job. She's with a man. That's obvious, because, like I said, if she is truly 21 years old. She might be 28 years old, but she's saying that she's 21. Like I said, being 21 and, in a relationship with someone who's established, because now the dude is going to be, like 5 to 7 years older than her. So she's like, oh, 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 oh. So, maybe they're not high school sweethearts, but she was in a shed. So if you're in a shed, it wasn't like a giant shed, but it wasn't a garage, it was a shed. So whoever she's with has acreage, like probably at least 5 acres, and there was an older car in there and some tools and whatnot. And like I said, she was in the passenger seat of what was clearly a pickup. You could tell by the mirror. Like a new pickup, but it was like, that's a pickup. So, but even if she was 28, it's like this, that, and the other. And most chicks, even at 28, they're not established like that. So she's with a man, either boyfriend or husband. Anyway. And whether or not he works, I don't know. The male of the human species almost kind of has to. Chicks, not so much. It's like that chips away at them. But a dude needs to come home from work and be tired and sweaty and come home to a lovely, sweet little plickety-plack little thing who has made him dinner. That's what, completes him. It's good for his psyche and his soul. Generally speaking, I'm just saying. So he probably is, he's probably, like I said, somewhat established, works in construction, but he's not, he's a foreman now, or a supervisor, right? He's working his way up. And he's married to an internet, she just shows her ass, and like I said, it's the shit, she's showing her the vagipus and all that, and, apparently he's okay with that. I'm kind of different in that sense too, like I said, I get it, and well, I'm beating myself, but, you should be her one and only focus, even though it's all pretend, oh, silly, and in her case, probably 100% AI. She might check that website once a day to just sort of check in, and make sure things are going, but all these suckers are probably paying $19.99 a month, and she, it's a zero engagement. They're beating off to her pictures that she uploaded, but they are not communicating with her, and I think that's why a lot of these guys do that shit, And like I said, the girl guy thing, with the picture of the eggplant, it's like that's what she's saying. And that's a thing, you want to see me get fucked, and that's a thing for a lot of dudes, but some dudes it's not, for that simp motherfucker, energy drink, video game motherfucker. He doesn't want to see her getting fucked by another dude because, he's fucking Ben. Gary, who stumbled across this is like, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing you getting plowed. Come on. Hey, there ain't nothing here. But Ben, that's gonna, oh. So like I said, I don't know if she's just like keep gathering information or what the fuck she's doing, but yeah. I guess that's all I gotta say about that. Hey, yeah. It's just early morning time. I'm sad and alone, plotting my revenge on the world. You will all know my name. Whatever. So, let's see, 14 and a half minutes. Yeah, it'd be nice if I could just go back to work and driving and start making money. And then when you're in my life, Katie Boo, like I said, I'll just say, look, and I'd whip out your picture. I'd be like, look, this is, look at her. Okay. there's this Ruby De Rossi chick who's fucking adorable and shit, but you know, Katie Boo, no, 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 no. She hits different. She is different. So I think I am more attracted to Katie Boo. Because Katie Boo, you're probably listening to this, because why wouldn't you be? I mean, you are going to be my future wife. And you're probably thinking, well, you would probably look at her and think that she's prettier than you. She's not. Now, if they were to ask a bunch of people who's prettier, you know, they would probably say Ruby De Rossi. But I don't think so. Like I said, I've said that before. I prefer, I call it the real woman look. And I would consider you a woman, not just a bitch or a chick. You know, sometimes I'll use the word broad, dame, you know, whatever. You know, it's like, where have all the good men gone? Now, here's the thing. I consider myself kind of a man boy. You know, I'm immature. But underneath it all, I haven't read the manual on how to be a man, but I do get it. I understand it. I'm not just regurgitating shit, you know, that I heard David Empty the Weenie say or anything like that, or Mr. Longhead. I do actually get it. And I'm not fooling myself like, yo. No, I fucking get it. I understand, you know, the responsibilities and the way that, you know, a man has to think and feel and internalize the world. I really and truly do. Yet at the same time, you know, it's like, you know, I'm a man child. And you got to be careful with that, you know, because you become what you think, right? And what you feel. Well, tell that to the guy behind my eye. We've all heard that story before, you know. When I say I live beside myself, that's the only thing that keeps me from turning into a permanent clown boy. So, that's why I say the rules get applied to me, but they don't actually apply to me. So, that's like Mrs. Butthead, for example. Anybody else who mentioned her, you know, at the rate that I do, and there, like I said, the whole secret fan thing, like, oh, you're listening in? Oh. What? Well, you still desperately want to have sex with me? Is that what's going on? Or should I be flattered or be offended? You know, and I just kind of get kind of cute, you know, or whatever. We're the Greek god. You know, Greek god, he's a chump. But the hell's wrong with him? He looks like he's melting. He's a Ken doll. But, she's no Barbie. Whoo! But, you know, whatever. But I've said that, you know, girls like Farkles. See, I just well, I don't know. She's beautiful, stunning. You don't know who she is. And she's always done up with makeup. And I've seen you without makeup. And, you know, and girls always look, you know, kind of like, oh. But you look good. And that's just what's up. You know what I mean? That's just what's up. Like I said, if I saw you, you know, at the grocery store, you know, my jaw, I'd notice you. You know, I'd be like, da-da-da-da-da, whoa. Wow. And I really would. I'm not just saying that. You are stunningly beautiful. But in, you know, kind of a plain Jane girl next door way. Ruby De Rossi, yeah, she kind of does the cutesy tootsy look. You know, she plays on that. But she's more kind of on the hot girl side of things. She is. And you know who she is. You know. So she plays it down a little bit, but I think she's actually more on the hot girl side of things. But if I saw Farkles at the grocery store, who you do not know who she is, I'd be like, whoa, you know, what are you doing, you know, mingling with us peasants and serfs? Why are you not, you know, in Hollywood with your Louis Vuitton, you know, bag and all that shit? She would look so out of place. Same thing with Little Miss, I'm a model, you know what I mean? SC. If I saw her at the grocery store, you know, because she's got like the augmented cheekbones, you know, and all that shit, and you know, she just absolutely looks like a model. She looks like she belongs on the runway, and now she is. But you look like, you know, I could totally come home to you and eat a healthy, you know, delicious and nutritious dinner that you made for me, give you a hug and a kiss, and, you know, how was your day? You know, whatever. No, I'm not like a supervisor dude or anything like that. I'm just Joe Blow schmuck loser, right? Which is a thing, you know, for girls, you know, especially as guys get older, you know, it's like they're supposed to be established and this, that, and the other. And I'm still just Joe Blow employee, but that's always been, you know, kind of my approach, you know. But I don't have responsibilities. I don't lead people. I'm a Taurus, the friendly bullshitter, so that's one of our traits. Not that I put a lot of stock into that, but, or any for that matter, but who knows what is life anyway. Like I said, I consider myself a Christian, just a bad one. But a lot of people, you know, whatever. It said, you know, Taurus, the friendly bullshitters, they can lead, but they don't like to. They would rather support a good leader. So a lot of that shit applies to me. You know, don't like change, stubborn. It did say something like this stubbornness, you know, almost to a fault. You know, like they have to finish projects. Yeah, that don't apply to me. You know, we like comfort. You know, we like excess. You know, I have all these pillows and oh shit, you know, and stuff like that. You know, we're down to earth and humble, but don't like change. Yeah, no shit. Anyway, oh shit. Happy birthday, by the way. I'm going to look that up. I'm going to look up what you are. I'm going to see if we're compatible. Not that it matters. It could say, you know, we're the worst, you know, two zodiac signs or whatever. It's like, you know, it's if two people were ever meant to not get together, it's the bull and the whatever you are. I don't care. I'm in love with her. Yeah. Anyway, think about your ass.